Yes, Benny, the first thing you do when you commit a crime is you make sure that nobody can pin it on you. You cover up the evidence. You tie up loose ends. It's been that way since the dawn of time, literally back to Cain and Abel, and that's the way it is today. Here's a loose end, ladies and gentlemen. Her name's Virginia Roberts. She worked for Jeffrey Epstein for decades and was abused and was trafficked to some of the most important and powerful people on earth. She writes in her private diary that Jeffrey Epstein had a security monitoring system that filmed people, and the FBI has all those tapes of her being abused and so on and so forth. Let me just say this. The royal family doesn't give £10 million payouts to just random people that make claims against them and strip the king's brother of titles, you know? And the reason why they did this is because Virginia Roberts has photos like this one. Virginia Roberts posted on social media, "I'm not suicidal," and then commits suicide after being hit by a bus in the middle of the Australian outback, which is some of the most remote and rural areas on Earth. You know, she just so happened to be a living piece of evidence right before we get this Epstein memo that perhaps would have been very vocal about the reality of Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that curious, right? Oh, it's dark. It's evil when you think about it. Well, okay. So Prince Andrew is obviously not going to want to be self-incriminating here, even though his own friends say that he was, and I'm quoting here, effing children. That's his own friends saying that. Ghislaine Maxwell is also in this picture. Now, according to Virginia Roberts, it was Ghislaine Maxwell who set this whole thing up. She said, "You're going to meet a prince tonight," and then she was trafficked to Prince Andrew. We have the tape, we'll play it for you. But before we do that, I want to make something very clear. Ghislaine Maxwell is alive and well, living in a prison not too far from where we're recording this in the state of Florida. It's a white-collar resort prison that the feds have for women of a certain social status. And you know, she's like a very interesting loose end that hasn't been tied up just yet, right? I wonder if she's gotten her scheduled Hillary Clinton visit in the dark of night. Is that on the calendar yet? Ladies and gentlemen, Virginia Roberts may not be able to speak any longer. Ghislaine Maxwell can. And her family says, we need to speak. And speak now. And there's a major push in Congress for Ghislaine Maxwell to speak, coming from the very top. And Congress, of course, could control a thing like this by just subpoenaing. I mean, the federal prison's answer to Congress, their Article 1 of the Constitution. You can subpoena a prisoner. I've been, and we have covered many congressional testimonies where a prisoner testifies from inside of their jail cell, or is there with a warden of the prison. Prisoners often testify. Ghislaine Maxwell family breaks their silence with bombshell claim as Trump decision to close Epstein case triggers civil war and cover up claims. Ghislaine Maxwell's family has broken their silence to insist that she is innocent, subjected to government misconduct in an unscrupulous effort to blame someone for Jeffrey Epstein's crime after he died. Well, that's an absolute matter of fact. I'm not saying Ghislaine Maxwell is innocent. Many people say that she might be the real villain in all of this. According to many of the women's stories, Ghislaine Maxwell was sort of the madame. She was the one who went and entrapped these women, right, for Epstein. But what I am saying is that when Jeffrey Epstein died in his cell, that so much, like that the entire case moved over to Ghislaine, who weirdly thought that she was going to be receiving federal protection because of a agreement that was signed with the federal government a decade earlier. And Jeffrey Epstein's first charges that should have landed him in jail that protected all of his counterparts in this trafficking operation. Anyway, the federal government did charge Ghislaine Maxwell. She was found guilty, and she's now serving 20 years in prison. Epstein's right-hand woman serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking offenses tied to the billionaire's finance crimes, but Bondi maintains that after years of rampant speculation, there is no evidence Epstein ever had a client list or trafficked anyone to anybody, had any blackmail operation. So is Ghislaine Maxwell a state prisoner? And you have to start asking questions like, well then what is this exactly? Right? No, we know enough about Epstein. We've read this, we've read all the documentation. No, she's very evil. And she, of course, understands so much more about this operation than is publicly available, and we want her to testify. It turns out her family does too. Maxwell was convicted in 2021, 2 years after Epstein was found dead in the cell. Her family now maintains that Ghislaine did not receive a fair trial, claiming that prosecutors stopped at nothing to convict her due to the public's appetite for justice on Epstein's behalf. According to the family statement, Maxwell prepared to file a writ of habeas corpus, which would allow her to challenge her imprisonment, and the challenge would be on the basis of new evidence as government misconduct that would likely change the trial's outcome. Well. So it turns out that this decision by the Trump administration may have some far-reaching consequences, including Ghislaine Maxwell getting out of prison. I mean, listen, if they find that no one was trafficked to anyone, well, she's in prison for child trafficking. Hundreds or thousands of cases? All to Epstein? Are you insane? Ghislaine Maxwell's family argues that she should have been protected under an agreement that Epstein entered into the Department of Justice in 2007, in which he vowed to not prosecute any of his co-conspirators after he paid fines and victims and served 13 months in prison. Jeffrey Epstein didn't actually serve any prison time, by the way. He was on a release program. He got to go home with a little ankle monitor the whole time. Counsel representing Maxwell, by the way, this is actually after like underage serial sex trafficking charges. This is what a sweetheart deal, this is what an unbelievable deal that Jeffrey Epstein had. By the way, this is after he was let off. I mean, the scandal is right in front of our faces, right? Like, Jeffrey Epstein was investigated by the FBI for 50 counts of child trafficking in 2005.
You can thank Obama for that.
Was in charge of the FBI. This is the Bush administration. And once Epstein started feeding information to the FBI, they absolved the charges. They all just went away. Bush, they allowed him to keep operating.
Joe Biden.
They allowed Jeffrey Epstein to keep going.
And Clinton.
The story of Jeffrey Epstein is the story of federal government's allowance of this predator network. In fact, not just that, but the encouraging of it. It's truly sick and dark. Okay, what does Ghislaine Maxwell's family say? Counsel representing Maxwell, David Oscar Marcus, said, "I'd be surprised if President Trump knew his lawyers were asking the Supreme Court to let the government break a deal. He's the ultimate deal maker, and I'm sure he'd agree with the United States gives his word that should keep it. With all of the talk about who's being prosecuted and who isn't, especially unfair that Ghislaine Maxwell remains in prison based on a promise the U.S. government made and broke." The family said they profoundly concur with Marcus's statements. The controversial deal stated that if Epstein successfully fulfills the terms and conditions of the agreement, the United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, including but not limited to 4 of Epstein's assistants. It did not name Maxwell specifically, but the 2007 deal applied to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern District of Florida. This is the infamous deal where Alex Acosta was told that Epstein belongs to Intel. Prosecutors found a loophole in which they were able to target Maxwell in New York, which treats such agreements differently to the vast majority of the American states. Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers are asking the court to resolve the difference between the districts. Okay. She's definitely not the hero here, but she could be the key to understanding what the hell's going on, right? Yes, right? She's alive and could testify. And according to reports, she wants to testify. The family wants Maxwell's sentence to be vacated and for her to be referred to resentencing, according to the court, applying an incorrect guideline range and offense level. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the letter here. This is the Maxwell family statement. You can see here, Maxwell's family now released a statement saying she didn't get a fair trial. We all know where this is heading. If the files aren't released, her lawyers will appeal the case and say, why should she be in jail if the government says that, there were no crimes here or whatever? Won't be long before lobbyists try and cook up a possible pardon campaign as well. Goodness gracious. That's right. This is what's happening here. With all the talk about who's being prosecuted and who isn't, it's especially unfair to Ghislaine, remains in prison based on a promise the U.S. government made and broke. Sentiments which we profoundly concur, says her family. So there it is. Now members of Congress are calling for Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. Tim Burchett saying, let's go. He's calling on Chairman Comer to have Ghislaine Maxwell testify. It would be easy. Why not? Ghislaine Maxwell's ex-cellmate insists that she isn't suicidal, at least. So, yeah, careful, obviously. Just putting it out there, I know Ghislaine Maxwell personally when I was in prison with her. She isn't suicidal. There are virtually no working cameras in Tallahassee. Just getting ahead of the potential narratives. Get her to testify now. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison because of a hoax. Let Ghislaine Maxwell speak. This was Mike Lee yesterday, speaking to us, explaining how important this is. Here you go. You'd be in favor of Ghislaine Maxwell testifying?
Absolutely, absolutely. Posted on this, and if she were to testify, I think she could answer a lot of questions that would help put all of this in perspective.
Do you have any instincts on what exactly was happening here? That does seem to be the rub, right? I know you know Tucker really well. I know you know Dan Bongino. I know you know a lot of these players. They're not monsters. They want the truth. Dan didn't take a 10,000% pay cut, right, to come up here and carry water for the deep state. That didn't happen. I'm telling you, it didn't happen.
Right.
I know him and you know.
Yeah, I know a lot of these players. Some of them are disagreeing with each other. Dan Bongino and I have been really good friends for the last 14 years. I'm good friends with Cash Patel and also with Pam Bondi. I like all of them. I think there is a way to draw a straight line between all of them in a way that will satisfy the public's both curiosity and legitimate demand